Hello and welcome to the agenda. Got fucking me throat there. Hello and welcome to the agenda on Labour Social. Hope you can see us all. Hope you can hear us all. Hello to everyone in the chat there. This is me, Graham Hughes, and Phil Moorhouse above me, doing our University Challenge impression. Don't kick me in the head like the young ones.
No.
So we've had a week, mate. The world's on fire.
Yeah. Shall I go through a list again?
There's a lot of Tories whose pants are on fire. Yeah, go on. Do the list.
This week, I'm not even going to go on the international news. So basically, it started off. The Tories think there's already dozens, like 4 dozens. Tory MPs said they're not standing the next election. They think there's going to be dozens more who just haven't said so yet. Sunak thinks he can take Starmer on a platform of strength of character. By the way, he's hiding today. Sunak lost a court case against himself. The polls are in absolute free fall. I've just been checking YouGov's latest polls. I saw a comment saying, "Oh, it's just one poll." Now, I mean, first of all, YouGov is one of the very accurate ones. I would always say YouGov and Ipsos Mori, with maybe opinion behind them, are the good ones. But they're, it's hugely opened up, and it's going in completely the wrong direction for Sunak.
I mean, come on, cheer us up, because the world news has been pretty dire this week with threatened explosion of a nuclear power plant in Ukraine, and obviously the world heating up. So what are the stats? I mean, how's it looking like in each constituency around the country? Let's cheer us up. Cheer us up, Phil.
At the moment, I can't imagine this is going to be the case, but at the same time, the Tories are getting every decision wrong. At the moment, the polls would suggest that the Tories will be left with double-digit numbers. We're almost getting back into Liz Truss territory. That being said, it could be argued. Well, I don't know. Like at the moment, you think about when they're going to aim for a general election. If they don't have a general election this autumn, it doesn't sound like they want it. Then that opens up the possibility more infighting. David Bannerman is a former, anti-EU MEP. Is going on about, the Tories are talking about who to replace Rishi Sunak with. I mean, they're not going to, but they could nonetheless undermine. They could try, and that will weaken him. Just the attempt to will weaken him. But I will say, there's 2 big reasons why they won't get rid of him. First of all, they will look like complete and utter clowns if they go for a 4th leader in the same parliament where they have a massive majority. It's insane. But the other thing is, talking of insanity, while Suella Braverman is a possibility, Tory MPs will never go for it. They know she is batshit.
No.
Absolutely doolally. And they've tried crazy. It went badly wrong. There's no way they're going to go for someone with even less.
I think, can I put a bet down?
Yeah,
can I put a bet down? Penny Mordaunt, I think, is going to be the next Tory leader.
She might be, but the thing is,
she held a sword, mate. Not as good as your sword.
Not as
she held a sword.
As mine. But
that's not a sword. This is a sword.
It's they can't take a chance. They know that the members will probably vote for the craziest option. So there's no way, even if they thought Penny Mordaunt would be better, and I don't think she'd be. I actually, do you know what? It's quite grim to think about it. Rishi Sunak is probably the best they can do at the moment.
Yes,
he's probably the best they can do. That's how bad it is.
But I mean, I don't want to be seen as defending Penny Mordaunt in any way, shape, or form. But she used to do equalities, did she? And she was quite good at one point. And then 2019 came along. Yeah. They got rid of all the sensible people at the party, and she was one of the sort of the survivors. And I think she went native. Do you know what I mean? She had to become crazy.
She did last summer, certainly. When it came to the leadership contest, they tried breaking it up. Oh, she's in favour of human rights. She's like, no, I'm not. I'm not.
No, I'm not. Honest. I hate humans and their stupid rights. I was like, what? What? Why? It's kind of painful. Painful.
Yeah, and I was just saying, I was looking through the detail of the YouGov results, because they always give you the details. So if I go back to 2019, just before the election, the Conservatives were leading Labour in the south of England, not including London, but Labour had a very slender lead in London, which is normally very Labour. The Tories had a big lead over them in the south of England. They had a substantial lead over Labour in the Midlands and Wales. And they had a massive lead over them in Scotland. And now Labour lead everywhere and over every party as well. So they, at the moment on the YouGov polls, they even lead the SNP slightly in Scotland, but Labour are definitely leading the Conservatives by big margins. The smallest margin is the south of England, expectedly, but still Labour leads them 39 to 30. So Labour are leading in every region. They're leading in every age group, apart from the very oldest, and they've really narrowed that gap. They're leading male and female voters. They're not leading on Leave voters, but again, they've massively narrowed the gap there. You know, it's just, this is, you know, you look, it's not just about looking at the raw values of the polls. Oh, Labour are 25 points ahead. That's just like the overview. If you look at the detail, Labour are just ahead everywhere. You know, every demographic. The Conservatives can only claim Leave voters. That's it. And
they've
even
been
then,
helped
not as
out,
many.
though. They've been helped out by the Tories sort of self-immolating, and also the SNP imploding. Like the SNP is just what happened?
But this has to. Well, what's happened is ultimately Nicola Sturgeon was a very, very canny political operator, and she was very skillfully able to point at the Tory skip fire in Westminster and go, this is the cause of all the problems. And you know, to a large part, it's true. But what's happened now,
a person being right.
Nicola Sturgeon has stepped down and people have suddenly started to think, hang on, the SNP have been in government in Scotland. Some things are actually devolved in Scotland. Should we start actually critically looking at what the SNP have done in government? And obviously anyone after 15 years people are going to start to give you a critical eye. So what's happened is there's almost been like a glamour broken. And so the SNP are now under more scrutiny than they were. But and the fact that Labour are looking, obviously people were never going to flip from the SNP to the Tories, but Labour are looking more plausible now. But you have to have the governments implode. Like no opposition can just, it's a two-way thing. You can't just wait for the government to implode and walk across their ashes. It doesn't happen. But at the same
we saw that in 2017. Labour didn't win the election, and again in the summer of 2019,
more especially.
Well, the summer of 2019, we had the EU elections when you know, okay, the Tories only got what 7 or 8% of the vote, but Labour only got 14%, and the Tories went shit, and they changed the leader because they were like, yeah, we're not going to make this, and they changed the leader, and Labour decided for whatever reason not to change their leader, and
but
what happened.
But I mean, in 2019, in the general election, Boris Johnson was campaigning over the prone bodies of people in hospital corridors. Like they weren't even on trolleys in corridors. There were no trolleys. They were just left. Ill patients were just left in corridors because there were no trolleys, never mind rooms for them. And he still won. So you have to have both. You have to have the government fail, because the thing is, don't matter how good you sound as an opposition, people are wary because they don't know. They can't be certain. We can't be certain exactly what Starmer's Labour government will be like. You know, we can look at the policies, we can look at what the Tories have done, we can look at what Labour have done in the past. But we can't be certain on you know, and members of the public will go, well, sometimes it's better the devil you know. So you need the current government to be really awful so that you know that's a bad call, so that but then you still need to present the better offer. So you have to have both. You have to win the election, but you know, you also need the current incumbents to be really perceived at least as bad.
Yeah. But I mean, the next election, obviously Labour are trying exceptionally hard not to spook the chickens in the coop, and as a result of that, a lot of people who are, you know, lifelong supporters of Labour, not entryists from a certain age, but you know, like people like myself who were members ages ago, are feeling a little bit like, come on, we need more meat, we need more to go on here, and a lot of their answers to questions come across as quite sort of milky toast. And that, like, I'm getting it. People are getting frustrated. There's people in the chat here mentioning it, that they're feeling like they're just going to be another Tories. But, you know, having these discussions with you and sort of thinking about it, like, even if they photocopied the Tories manifesto, which they're not going to do, but even if they did, at least, at the very least, a new Labour government would be accountable, like the Tories never are, because they won't have the media on side.
Yeah.
They won't have all their old school.
They certainly won't
on
after
side.
today.
And they'll be accessible. Like we will be able to actually have conversations with people in power, which we can't do at the moment because we didn't go to the right school. And we don't have £1 million in our bank account. Well, just like Nigel Farage.
That's what's just been said, actually. On the current, obviously, Keir Starmer's likely to have another reshuffle, but on the current shadow cabinet, it's going to be like the most state-educated ever, really, more so than Clement Attlee's.
Yes.
The reporting was saying since 1945, but actually, it would be more state-educated than even Clement Attlee's cabinet. Yeah. So the old school tie is not really in abundance there. I think it was something like 13% of the shadow cabinet went to a private school, whereas you compare it's about 3/4 of the current.
Yeah, Tory 66% cabinet. In the current.
Is it 66? All right. Yeah. Oh yeah, I suppose they've got rid of a few people. It was about 3/4 when Sunak took over, but he had to sack a few, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, last time I checked, it was 66%. It went down like by 1% when Liz Truss was in charge because she didn't go to a private school, and then it went back up as soon as she was kicked out. But all the people around her, obviously, privately educated. So there's that. But there's been like a lot this week. I mean, I just mentioned about Nigel Farage's banking woes. We've also had Chris Pincher's report came out, and he was suspended for, was it 2 months was the recommendation?
Yeah, 8 weeks,
8 weeks. And then we've also had the Mercers. This is Jonny Mercer going on Question Time and just being weird. I don't know why they're in the public eye this week. Like, you don't hear from these people for months and months and months, and suddenly they're everywhere. But his wife, Felicity Cornelius Mercer, she didn't go to the comp, did she? She had a go at Carol Vorderman. And I think it's really interesting when we're talking about this kind of class snobbery that we have in this country, that the people that the ruling elites go after are people like Carol Vorderman or Gary Lineker or Marcus Rashford, who didn't have plummy upbringings. You know, they're working class kids done well, and they hate it. They hate it.
Yeah.
They seem to go out their way to go after those lot. Oi, know your place. Shh, shh. And hopefully that's going to change under a new Labour government. Also, the number of women MPs in Labour is over 50%. I think it's about 53 or 54% in Labour, whereas in the Tories, it's what, 17? It's really
We'll have to see what happens, because at the end of the day, not even with current polling. I mean, with current polling, I don't even know. But Labour are pretty much going to double their number of MPs, which actually is going to be a bit of a logistical challenge for Starmer, because he's all of a sudden going to have like half of his MPs, maybe more than half of his MPs, who don't know how to be MPs.
Yes. That's never stopped the Tory party, though, has it?
No. But in terms of like I remember in 2019 hearing stories of MPs, most of them are Tory MPs, but it doesn't really matter, just MPs in general, who didn't understand what was going on. They were sat down in the House of Commons with debates and go, why are they waving their papers? What's going on? I thought, have you never actually watched a parliamentary debate? Like, who tries to become an MP without having any interest in parliamentary processes? But that is nonetheless what happens. So there's going to be a load of Labour MPs who just haven't got a clue what's going on. The chief whip's going to come up to them and say, which select committee do you want to be on? Like, what are you on about?
Yeah.
So, it's going to be really weird. Obviously, he's got enough for government places because he's got a full shadow cabinet. There's a super chat.
Yeah, thank you very much, Yorosh. 20 euros super chat. Thank you, you legend. Really appreciate that. All right,
so I just think he's going to have a bit of imagine your workplace. You've got a workplace, it's all going well. Then they decide to expand a bit, and all of a sudden, you double your workforce in that workplace, but with people who don't know. They might have qualifications and skills, but they don't know how your workplace works. And usually you have a few new ones, and then someone mentors them or something like that. So imagine it's going to be I would think it's going to be a bit of a nightmare. At the same time, I think it's a nightmare he will welcome. I mean, having like
yeah,
400 MPs is not
it's not a
considered
bad
the
thing,
biggest
is it?
problem to have.
But this is it for a lot of people now. I mean, we're seeing this in the chat, we see this in discussions on Twitter or anything. That people aren't happy with the way that Keir Starmer and even Angela Rayner are coming across on certain issues, and PR is a big one for politics wonks like us, because obviously we want PR, we massively want PR, but then at the same time, I'm kind of thinking, is this a priority for the people of Britain right now? And if Labour make it a priority, would that be a misstep?
At the end of the day, Labour will, there's two types of policy they will push. One is the ones they need to appeal to win power and stay in power. The other are the ones that's in Labour's interest. PR is in Labour's interest in the medium term. They can't let the Tories back in. Cannot. Otherwise, whatever they do is washed away. But I would also say on that Angela Rayner thing, and
Casey's just put that into the chat. She said she's yet to be convinced because of the fear of extremists being voted in.
I know why Angela Rayner is, well, first of all, there's the real reason and what should be implying. First of all, because Labour aren't getting, they know full well that the right wing would absolutely do their nanas. So anyone in Labour will pour cold water on it. Like Keir Starmer says, not a priority, right? But the other thing is Angela Rayner's from the Northwest. Now, in the Northwest, it's very hard to find Tory MPs. What would happen with like Liverpool, your home city, has got none. There's like 6 MPs. I think they're all Labour. What would happen with PR is they'd get a Tory MP. Depending on how you do the system, but there will be there'll be more Tory MPs in the Northwest, which means fewer Labour MPs. Now, there'll be more Labour MPs in the rest of the country. So it works out better.
Thank you very much, Alex, for the super chat. Sorry,
all those MPs who have got safe seats, all of a sudden with PR, because you have to fight for every vote, you can't sit on massive majorities. So all of a sudden you have to get the best candidates in, and that's not always in the interest of everyone.
What about if in a PR situation, which is what I know spooks a lot of people about it, is the idea that the Tories get 50% of the seats and they need one more seat, and they go over to Nigel Farage or Richard Tice or Loser Fox or something, and they say, please join us so we can get stuff through. And they say, only if you go more extreme to the right.
It's never going to, they will never get 50% between them. They'll not get 50%. First of all, the country is slightly centre-left.
Right.
But the other thing is, I mean, if you can look back at
left.
Huh?
Sorry, I was just making it because you said slightly left, and I went right as in yes, you're right, but obviously it sounded like I was correcting you.
All right.
Sorry.
And the other thing, like you just look at past election results, going way back when no one gets 50% of the vote or anywhere close to it. Like the Tories got 43% of the vote in 2019. I mean, that's pretty close. That's as close as most people will get. And the Brexit Party or Reform UK are like a fringe party. Like they're going to get like 3% of the vote. Again, they're going to get like 3% of the vote realistically. And as for Reclaim, behave yourself. I mean, they're not even going to get their deposits back. So it's not going to happen. The power that Reform UK have with first past the post is they can deny the Tories seats. That's the danger with them, that they force them to adopt terrible policies.
Yes.
By saying we will stand down otherwise.
And if we talk about extreme governments, just look at the government of the last 13 years, the Tory government, especially since the EU elections of 2013, when the UKIPers did really, really well, and that spooked the Tories.
Exactly.
A lot.
That is why David Cameron's such an idiot. He actually thought he had to go for the referendum, at least promise it, because his MPs were spooked by UKIP. That's exactly what it was. But they fundamentally misunderstood the difference between how people vote in the European elections and how they vote in a general election. It's not even the same system. European elections, PR, the general elections first past the post.
Yeah.
So it was an utter nonsense. But the other thing is, I will point out that I actually think there's a lot of Labour MPs who are in favour of PR. Tory MPs may follow, actually, if Reform UK keep holding them hostage. I think there are a lot more, because you'll notice what Rayner also said. She said, and obviously we don't know what her real position is, but she also said, but if Conference backs it, then I'll support it.
Yeah.
Well, Conference has backed it, and it's going to back it again.
Yeah.
It'll back it because the thing is, like, Labour always do this. Whenever they're losing and they don't look like winning again, the Tories are in power, they'll go, well, maybe we should change the system. Of course you would. But now Labour look like winning. They look like winning big. And yet Labour members haven't gone cool on the idea. Labour members are still saying, no, we want proportional representation. And I think it's because it'd be interesting to properly poll Labour members. But I think it is because they recognise that it doesn't matter what Labour do. If you let the Tories back in, eventually you can't win forever. We're not going to be we're not going to be a country with like 5 or 6 mainstream parties and the same party in government for 50 years. It's not going to happen. They'll be in, if they're lucky, for 10 or 15, and then the Tories will come back. We know how it's going to go down, and they'll just destroy everything again. So I think people recognise that first past the post is not in Labour's long-term interests. So I think
I think that's something that obviously
solid.
We want as Labour members, and has come up in conference time and time again. We voted for it in the last conference. It'll be voted again this conference, I'm pretty sure, in Liverpool in September. So, I mean, Labour will move towards it, but I can't see them making it a priority. That's the thing.
Not for this election. And if I would like to, just so I can calm down. But if I was advising them on strategy, I would advise them not. I would say to them, no, because you're going to win the next election anyway. And then I would put it into the next manifesto. Yeah. Reason being, by then you start to lose your anti-Tory tactical voting, or some of it, because now you're in government. So you'll get the Lib Dems and the Greens back on. Plus, it still gives you 2 whole parliaments of majority power. And if you're going to bring in proportional representation anyway, make the next one 5 years, come what may, that gives you, so if you go for 4 years in the first term, which you almost certainly do, and then 5, that gives you 9 years to embed your reforms in. If you can't carry out your reforms in 9 years, you haven't got a very good plan. Yeah. So 9 years is plenty. And after that, proportional representation, you're not going to win a majority, you'll be in coalition. But you know what? The Tories will be frozen out for like goodness knows how long. And when they do come back in, the way the Tories will come back in, first of all, they'll have to massively moderate themselves. So the Bravermans will be gone. Second of all, what will happen? I know what will happen.
They're going to have to come back to the centre desperately.
I've grown up in a Labour council just like you have. And when you're in power for too long, you get too big for your boots, right? So what will happen is...
Also, you run out of ideas, Phil.
I'm not sure...
We saw this with Labour.
I think there's a difference between being too timid and running out of ideas. I think they had ideas. They're just too timid about them.
When Labour were last in office, you mean?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there's a lot of stuff they could have done, particularly about one of my little sort of bugbears, which is public transport, that they just didn't do. They didn't take any of the opportunities that they had, to renationalise the railways when they could have done that.
But But what will happen anyway is they'll just get too big for the boots. They'll take the attitude. What will happen? They'll be in power too solidly. They'll stop appointing leaders who are focused on winning and start appointing leaders who are more ideologically appealing. And then they will be. They'll take the attitude to the Lib Dems. No, you're going to support us because of what you're going to do. Support the Tories. Good joke. And then one day they will. So that'll be how it comes back. But at least then they are moderated. And they're moderated much more robustly than happened with the coalition from 2010 to 2015, because that was the only show in town, whereas it won't be the only show in town with PR. So the Lib Dems, even halfway through the parliament, if the Tories try and take the piss, can just say, well, we'll just go back to Labour then.
Yeah. But I would like to see Labour teaming up with the Greens or teaming up with the Lib Dems or someone on the left to come up with policies that better represent what the people of Britain want. There are a lot of people out there who would vote Green, but they don't, because what's the point? They need like 800,000 votes per MP.
Well, there's a good chance they won't have any after the next election now.
Helen says, £2 super chat here, mate. She says, it matters what type of PR is chosen. A lot of people in the chat have been discussing this, saying, Early Burn saying we need to work out a good PR system. Very true. Loads of different varieties of PR. Some of them work. Some of them work really well. Some of them don't work as well. For the size of our nation, the makeup of our nation geographically, and the way society's made up, and our cities and everything else, we need to have a really good think about this. It's not good enough to just go PR, and that'll just be like this panacea.
What I would do is because some people will also say, because I don't mind the idea of a party list and things like that. But people says, oh, but people like to vote for the candidate. So I would say is okay, so you can still do that. So if you have a system, let's say it's like Liverpool, 6 MPs. So you need roughly 17% of the vote for each. Every 17% you get an MP, right? So, and then whatever's left at the end of it to appoint the 6th MP, it's just whoever's left out of the rest of it, whoever's got the most votes out the left. So what you could do is on your voting paper, you can still have independent candidates as well. So what you can do is on your voting paper, you can have a list of the parties represented plus any independent candidates. But then what you can do is it'll be a larger ballot paper. You can have for each party the candidates they've chosen, which like Liverpool will be 6. And you can actually put your tick in the box of the candidate. So what happens is, let's say Labour get 4 MPs. The people will be appointed are not the ones in the order that the national leadership has selected. It will be the ones who got the most votes from the Labour votes. So you could still then vote for the Labour candidate. Like you could say, oh, I don't like Fred Bloggs. That's like the national leadership's choice. I like the local guy, Freddie Wilkins, right? Well, Freddie Wilkins will have had the most votes they'll get in. So there's lots of things you can do to give people the choice while still making it representative.
Yeah. We're looking at the some of the chats here, and I'm just putting a question up to people, which should be a little poll that you should be able to answer in the chat, and it's saying whether you think that Labour should, hopefully this will work, should Labour put PR in this manifesto or leave it until 2028, 29? So let's see what our viewers think about.
I think I can suspect this because more people will care more about getting PR in.
Oh, nice. Well, we'll see. We've got 600 people watching, so let's see who wants to vote. Oh, it's we're getting a majority here for 2028, 29. 65% at the moment. Oh, Scoopnum's discovered the super chats. Thank you very much, Scoopnum, for throwing that in there. But yeah, I mean, the Jupe is saying your nation is too big for one parliament, in my opinion. Even with PR, it will cause trouble. As a German, I do like federalism and clear separation of the jobs different levels of the government have. I would say yes, but also I don't like the fact that Angela Merkel was in charge of Germany for 20 years. I think that's far too long for any leader to be in power.
I don't know. I mean, I do favour a federalist system, but it's not so much that I don't think there should be one part. What I think is Westminster doesn't need to have control over everything.
Thanks, Scoop them. Sorry, super chat.
So there's a lot of things that can be devolved, just as they have been with Scotland. Like if you had the equivalent of the Scottish Parliament, Wales has a parliament, but doesn't have as many powers as Scottish Parliament. But even splitting up regions in England and like devolving things more.
Yes.
And then Westminster deals with the things that are of genuine national that you need for national cohesion.
Yeah,
so you could
federal. Would you go for a federal system?
Yes, because we are a federal country anyway. Whether like it or not, culturally we're federal. So we just don't have the federal politics to go with it, which is what causes a lot of angst.
Yeah, and I understand the grievances that people in, say, Scotland have against the English, although I hate being thrown into that cohort. I guess I am. I've got Irish heritage, I've got a Welsh surname, I've got a Scottish first name, and I was born in England, so, you know, I'm pretty British. But yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it, that we sort of look at our system and we're like, there must be a better way of doing this. So I'm going to take down the poll now. We've had 150 votes, 147 votes, and 33% think that it should be this manifesto for PR, and 68% think that it should be in the 2028-2019 manifesto. So they agree with you, Phil. Right. There you go. So we're going to end that poll there. That was fun. I like making a poll. Scoopnum, no, you didn't make a mistake. You just put another £2 super chat in. Thank you very much, Scoopnum, in there. But we've been discussing PR quite a lot in the first half an hour. But the title of this episode of the agenda is about is shockingly cruel, because we wanted to. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about Robert Jenrick and his demand that a cartoon on a children's reception centre for children who have just fled, I don't know, horrific persecution, war, famine, whatever. And he said, no, this is too jolly. We're gonna.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like something from a Disney
But it is.
or like North Korea or Afghanistan.
The thing is, it's not like someone said, "Oh, should we brighten it up to make them more cheerful?" No, we can't spare the money. He's spent money on removing a scintilla of joy. He's actually spent our money on doing that. But I'll tell you the best take I saw on it, though, because someone was trying to, like, tongue-in-cheek defend Jenrick here. This is quite good. Bear in mind, the pictures, it was like Disney pictures, Mickey Mouse and stuff like that. So this guy said, I honestly think it was a genuine mistake. Jenrick was concerned about the children in the government's care in the refugee centre. He wanted to make sure the building was as inconspicuous as possible and ordered anything removed that identified it as a UK government building. And that's when they decided they had to get rid of Mickey Mouse.
How does he work? Oh, come on. That
Mickey
is
Mouse government.
That is a terrible, very good. That is a terrible excuse. Is that the genuine
No,
excuse?
that's the joke. That's the joke.
Oh, sorry.
God, because it's Mickey Mouse. They want to sort of, yeah.
But yeah, it's obscene. It's absolutely obscene. And if anyone's still out there who like are defending the Conservatives or thinking they're doing a good job, which they're patently not, or think they have the best interests of us at heart, which you don't, this kind of thing, like we call them the nasty party. They're just horrible. They're just like...
Well, they call themselves the nasty party. Theresa May called them the nasty party.
Yeah. Thanks very much for the super
chat.
They are
self-aware.
They know, I guess they know what they are. It's just Ernie says cruelty is the point of fascism. The need to dehumanize the system is essential to fuel their power. Do you know what this reminds me of? Obviously, this is on another level, but Trump enjoying the fact that there were children in cages coming over the Mexican border and being put in cages, and those photos got out, and the fact that he went, yeah, it's great, and you saw his popularity amongst his base go up as a result of that cruelty, which is just...
I mean, speaking of knowing who people are, have you seen today's scandal? George Osborne's wedding guest.
No, we're not talking about this. We're not talking.
Are we not?
No, God, no. God, no. Yeah, please, God, I can't afford it.
Oh dear.
But yes, there's something going on out there. If you want to find out what's going on, we've got nothing to do with it. But yeah, lots of people are sharing it. But yeah, looks like Gideon Osborne has caused a little bit of a ruckus in his private life, and he's upset someone who is.
Well, he's out Boris Johnson. According to this, anyway.
Yes, allegedly. Oh, come on, let's change the subject quickly because I just don't have the legal background to deal with this kind of stuff. But yeah, it's pretty shocking. Pop bitch on steroids. Christopher is pointing out in the chat here that Starmer is sucking up to the prison ship loving Murdoch press, and this is something that we should probably address, isn't it?
You've not seen the news today, then, have you? Because he's pissed them all off.
Cringe at Trump from Scoop, another super chat there. So what's happened today?
So obviously the Conservative, like after the Leveson inquiry, after the phone hacking scandal, it was realised that the press were behaving as law unto themselves and they needed a bit of regulation going on.
Yeah.
So there were various recommendations made. The Conservative government put in some of them. So then in 2019, Boris Johnson, former alleged journalist, said, actually, the press are far too highly regulated, if you believe that. We ought to get rid of all of... We're not going to implement the rest of the Leveson recommendations. We're going to actually get rid of all the ones we have implemented, in fact.
Yeah.
So they're now planning on doing some of that. And one of them relates to having to pay legal fees with like libel cases and things like that, which Labour have said, no, they're going to oppose the repealing of that. If anything, Starmer has suggested that he would want to implement all of the Leveson recommendations. I would argue probably it would be better just to have another one now, just to update, just to make sure everything is still valid. But it's but certainly Labour opposed it, and like all of the press aren't like this. Basically, what the deal was, like at the moment, although it's like Labour also making the point, this rule has, although it's in law, it's never actually happened that they've had to come up with legal fees even when they've won a case. But the whole idea was to try and persuade them to be regulated. So there's a press regulator.
Phil, can I just interrupt here? First of all, thank you to David Lewis for the super chat, and also Lawrence Media saying PR should be brought in, but not immediately. Also, fascism seems to be on the rise across Europe. Can I just really stress not to write anything about the Osborne story in the chat? Because if you do, like, we won't be able to put this video available afterwards. So can you just try and not put anything in the chat there about it? If you want to find out, just go and find out on your own time. Just let's try to stay away from that. Sorry, Phil. So
so they were trying to get them to join a regulator called Impress, but who can sort of indemnify you against certain things. But the press decided they didn't want a genuinely independent regulator.
Of course,
so they made their own. They made their own regulator,
mark their own homework.
Which they run. Yes, exactly. Yes. They run. So yeah, the Tories are basically repealing another one of the Levinson recommendations that has actually been put into law. Labour is saying no, we're not in favour of this. Opening up, of course, the suspicion that not only when the Tories, because the Tories will repeal it, they've got the numbers to repeal it.
Yeah.
Not only will they repeal it, the suggestion that they could just put it straight back again and put more in besides. So at the moment, the press are not very happy with Keir Starmer, which I don't really mind, because it's like people always talk about, things. Oh, who's this paper going to back? Who's that paper going to back? Like, I don't care. Nor if it was a tight election, you might think you have to fawn a little bit to them. I don't care at the moment. Yeah. They're going to win. They're going to win with or without Murdoch. Sod him.
Well, then, if they're going to win, sorry, I've just got to shout out to the super chats that have come forward. Scoopnam, £1.99 super chat. Europe's shift to the right scares me too. It's something that we should get into maybe on a future episode of this. Talk about Europe's shift to the right in recent years, whereas the UK and the US who've undergone populism in the most horrific forms over the last 10 years are shifting more and more to the left. And a Happy has given £5 that says leave it till the second term. Obviously talking about PR there. But with Murdoch and the fact that he seems to be courting Murdoch. He went to a Murdoch birthday party a couple of weeks ago. I can see why people find that unsettling, but at the same time, I think, is this just the game that they have to play?
Well, they feel they do. I don't agree. I didn't agree when Blair did it, and Blair got much closer. I like in a tight contest, you do. I remember, for example, there's sometimes a bit of hypocrisy about it. I remember Diane Abbott when Keir Starmer wrote for The Sun. Oh, how dare he do this? How dare they? And I thought that's quite interesting, Diane. Quite interesting. I remember in 2010, and you can still quite easily find it. In 2010, when she was running for the Labour leadership, she said that she would be writing in The Sun because she said it's really important to engage with as many voters as possible. So, of course, I will be writing in The Sun as well as other papers as well. All of a sudden, someone else is the leader. How dare you write for The Sun?
So I had a bit of a row with Rob Rinder, who does Judge Rinder, because he started a column in The Sun.
Yeah.
Giving out legal advice. And he said to me, well, don't hate me. Because, obviously I'm from Liverpool, history and everything. He said, but the thing is, a lot of the people who read The Sun can't afford legal advice.
Yeah.
And so if I can give them advice about, and Judge Rinder, the TV show is all about that. Basically, it's giving people who are watching TV during the daytime, generally might not have a lot of money, knowledge about the law that they wouldn't otherwise have.
Yeah.
Which is I get it, but still, it still sticks in my craw, like just The Sun.
The thing is, though, The Sun's got to be on its way out. It's hemorrhaging money. You can at least take solace in the fact that Murdoch is losing money, and the reason it's losing money because not enough people are buying it. So he's losing money on something.
Didn't it? Was that always?
It's now losing a lot of money.
The Sun,
and it's losing a lot of money to get to not that many people. It's more important though, politically, because the people it does get to are some of the key voters. That's the problem.
Yeah.
But it's a relatively small. The Daily Mail is far more insidious. The Daily, actually, these days, more like the Daily Telegraph.
The Telegraph pretends that
now.
it's a broadsheet when actually it's just a
Yeah,
horrible
but
nasty tabloid.
it's also more trusted than the Daily Mail. Like the Daily Mail, even Tories know is a load of crap.
But I mean, the people who read it, they read it as gospel. You know, it's kind of a bit embarrassing the lack of critical thinking amongst mail readers, which you don't really have on the other side. You know, I love slagging off the Guardian. There's always things in the Guardian. I'm like, what the hell are they doing?
Well, yes, they do. There is not. I mean, there's not a single newspaper that speaks to me. I think Byline Times makes a serious effort to like report
Byline's
news.
very good.
Tortoise as well.
Yeah, Tortoise. They do a lot of investigative journalism, which is sadly lacking. I mean, most of these so-called newspapers aren't news. They're just, here's the things that happened yesterday, and here's our opinion about the things that happened yesterday. Not always in that order.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking tonight about the Daily Express's Brexit poll. Did you see that?
Oh, yeah. Didn't it just go really badly for them? Go on, tell us about it.
Not only went really badly for them, but then they complained. So I thought to myself, so what happened? Well, for those who don't know, Tobias Ellwood was going on about joining the single market again. He's the only Tory MP to do so. And so the Daily Express ran a poll, and they do what they always do. They tell their readers what to think, then says, here's a poll, what do you think? And then lo and behold, they all think what the Daily Express told them to think. And on this one, it was 70% said we should rejoin the EU, rejoin the single market. And then I thought to myself, so I'm going to read the follow-up now, because they didn't delete it. Some people thought they'd delete it like some Twitter hero. No, the Daily Express don't delete things. So they've paid for it. So they put, I was reading the blurb, are they going to be a bit reflective here? And it was like, no, it's Remainer cheating. So how did Remainers cheat then? Well, they filled in the poll as well, right? Were we not supposed to? And then they told their Remainer, and then they told their Remainer friends to fill it in. It's like we're not supposed to do that either.
Sorry, Phil. Are you still there? All right, I'm back. No, I was going to say it's a bit like that time that I cheated in that exam by remembering the stuff that I needed to know for the exam. Sorry, come on, what were you saying?
I was just saying that it's like, it's absolutely insane what they're coming up with. It was a Remainer plot because we filled in the poll and told other Remainers about it as well. It's like, but it came from a pro-Brexit source. Did they not tell other people to fill the poll in?
I know, yeah. Well, I mean, we saw this. There was never a popular movement to leave the EU. There was never a million people on the streets of London saying, let's leave the EU. It was completely top-down, elitist, ruling class, putting it, saying, oh, no, they're going to bring in new tax reforms and I might have to pay more tax. Let's get out of this thing because it's not going to affect them. If you're rich enough, you can still live in any of the countries of Europe.
Yeah.
If you've got the money. If you haven't got $5,000 in your bank account, good luck getting residency, like.
They're having a pop at Malta at the moment for giving away these sort of
golden passports.
Golden passports, yeah. But at the moment, you can still do it. I'm surprised. I suppose. Well, maybe that's it. Because you wonder to yourself, why hasn't Nigel Farage got an EU passport? And then you remember the news from last week. He ain't got enough money, has he?
So we didn't talk about this last week, did we? About because I don't think the story had come out about Nigel Farage and Coutts Bank, which you need £3 million in savings, and they've said you haven't got enough money. So they kicked him out, and he did this thing that the Tories always do, or right-wingers always do, which is they try and get ahead of a bad news story. So we saw this with Trump when he got indicted. He put on Truth Social that he'd been indicted before it happened. We saw this with, was it Matthew Goodwin, was it? It was Vote Leave, and he was found to have broken electoral law. And he had 2 weeks. He had a nice little conversation with Laura Kunsberg on the BBC about how it wasn't fair before the report actually came out, and Boris Johnson did it in the UK with the report into him. They put out this news story before the actual report comes out to get ahead of a bad news story, and Farage has done this and he's made it into something. But it's not just that. If it was just being reported in the Mail and the stupid newspapers, fine, but this is actually being picked up by the government, by the Treasury, who are putting in an investigation into people having their bank accounts taken away because of their political opinions. Something that has never happened.
I'll tell you
in the
what's
history of the world.
hilarious. is they're now trying to suggest, and I gather there's some in the Tory party trying to suggest to say that, oh, we should, it turns out it's this EU law, we should repeal it. It's like, no, the EU law, there's no EU law or British law that allows a bank to close down your account because of your political affiliations. What there is there's a law that says if it looks like your account is being used for money laundering or funding terrorism. So by saying they're going to get rid of this law, it's almost like they're in order to do a solid to Nigel Farage, it's almost like they're implying that he's involved in money laundering or funding terrorism. And the thing is, the hilarious thing is, I saw from Reform UK as well, that today saying we would make it a law that everyone has a right to a bank account. And it's like, we already have that right. That's an EU law that we carried on. As far as I know, it's still in place in this country. Everyone does have a right to a basic bank account. And that's an EU law that you said we should scrap.
Indeed. Fart Fudge didn't make enough from Cameo. It'll be OnlyFans next. Oh, God damn you, Ernie! He's put that in the chat. He's put, I wish I hadn't thought about that. Not only did you think about that, Ernie, you made me think about that too. And everyone else who's watching this. Oh my God. Oh, could you? Oh no. No, I'm going to say, could you imagine? Jupp is talking to Yovash and saying, good luck trying to get any fiscal stroke tax reforms passed in the EU with Poland and Hungary still being able to veto it. I do agree, though, the US has the more reasonable position here. When we're talking about the EU power of veto that's been given to some of the smaller countries, or more wingnutty countries in the EU, like Hungary, that's where the EU needs reform. And I've never been one of these. I love the way that if you are, say, a Labour supporter at the moment, it's not good enough to just be a Labour supporter. You've got to absolutely love Keir Starmer and everything he does. You got to, bow down in front of him, go, we're not worthy. And it's like, the reality isn't like that. Although I was very pro-EU and didn't want us to Brexit, I was never going around worshipping the EU, going, everything's great in the EU. Nothing can, nothing needs to change. There's loads of stuff that needs to change. Still needs to change to this day. But I thought the way of affecting that change isn't by leaving. It's by being part of it, and being part of it, putting it back together. Also, thanks to Scoop them for the £2 super chat there. Hello, Dr. Good and Sexy. Okay, Scoop them. Cheers. Yeah. The EU was okay with these people when it was basically a millionaires club, but when things like workers' rights came into the equation, suddenly we must leave. Coincidence or what?
Yeah. Well, that's it. They keep, you get mad people talking about, like, even on the left, even like the Lexiteers, it's this neoliberal project. It's like, no, it's not. Neoliberalism is about shrinking the state, about reducing regulation. The EU has massively increased regulation along consumer rights, along environmental protections, along workers' rights, along just basic civic rights. That's what it is. That's what it does, and that's what it continues to do.
Yeah.
So it's the very opposite of a neoliberal project. I think people don't actually know when they use. It's very fashionable to use this. Oh, neoliberalism. Everything's neoliberalism. It's like, do you know what that means? I don't think you do.
Inconceivable. Ernie Burns has put in a great little note here saying the trick the criminal uses is to blur the lines between persecution and prosecution. That's put very, very well.
Yeah. Well, GB News are doing that again as well. They're whining. Now? There's two whines. I'm going to do my stream on it tomorrow. They're whining about two things at the moment. But one of them is on advertiser, because there's another advertiser pulled out. I think it's something to do with coffee. I don't like coffee. But another advertiser's pulled out. Yeah, and GB News are whining about it, saying, this is attack on freedom of speech. And I said, no, it's not. They just don't want to pay for your speech.
Exactly. Jez Hunt has put in the chat there. He's put instead of OnlyFans, OnlyFash. And Scootner's put another £2 in. I think that joke gave me abs. I don't know what you mean, mate, but yes, thanks very much. Andrew's asking where the poll is. It's gone. We only ran the poll for a few minutes. But it did come up with about 2/3 for Labour leaving PR till the 2028-2029 manifesto, rather than trying to put it into this one, because let's face it, it's not going to be a vote winner, is it, at this point?
No, but at the same time, it may not. I don't know. It's obviously Labour can carry out whatever polling they want. The issue is it could be because at the moment we're in a situation where politics is clearly broken. You almost like think about what Brexit was. People voted for Brexit because the system was broken. You know, ordinary working people, clearly the system was rigged against them. It's just they were persuaded to believe it was the EU rigging it against them instead of the Tories.
Yeah.
So, and Trump did the same thing. Drain the swamp. You know, people in America could see that the system was rigged against them. It's essentially the fault of much more honourable politicians who didn't sufficiently have the best interests of ordinary workers at heart.
Yeah.
So, so you could argue like politics is leaving the EU didn't fix our politics. Politics is even more broken now.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
actually,
made
you could argue
situation worse.
Something like PR could actually be much easier to fight at this election than, you know, when politics has stabilized a bit, because if it stabilized a bit, people might think, well, actually politics is working now. Should we really change it to this new scary thing? Whereas if everything seems broken, so you could argue maybe it would be easier for the next election. It's just a problem that it's not in Labour's strategic interest to do it this election. It'd be much more in their interest the following election. That's the issue.
Yeah, we've got Alex in the chat saying, so GB News is whining about free market economics, idiots.
Yes, yeah.
Someone else who's whining about free market economics is the famous libertarian Elon Musk, who has come up against the Effenberg, Zuckerberg, sorry, who has launched Threads, which is a rival to Twitter, direct rival to Twitter, in that frustratingly you can't edit your messages once you put it up. So you can write a big long thread, and then you realize that you've made a spelling mistake, and then you have to delete it and put it back up again, which is really annoying. Now, if you want to follow me on Threads, I'm on there. One of the interesting things, I've just put that link into the chat there. I hope it works. I don't know if I have to put the @Graham David Hughes there, but that's my link there if you want to follow me on Threads. But it's interesting that it's threads.net. They don't have threads.com. And like, this is one of the things that, you know, when you decide to get yourself a URL, it's got to be .com. It has to be. It's facebook.com. It's twitter.com. It's grahamdavidhughes.com. It's gingerisland.com. It's got to be .com. Like, .net makes it sound like it's a charity fundraiser. I mean, what? How do they not get that? Also, Threads reminds me of the 1980s dystopian nuclear fallout film set in Sheffield.
Yeah.
People crying and slowly dying of radiation poisoning. Thank you very much, Andrew Greenland. Sorry, Phil. Andrew Greenland dropped €10 into the chat. Enjoying the channel. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much, Andrew. Sorry, Phil. Go on.
I was just going to say, obviously, Musk must think it might be a goer because he's having a pop at Zuckerberg for going. I said, I don't mind competition, but this is just cheating. And I don't know whether it is cheating or not. I mean, it's only cheating surely if you nick some of Twitter's code. But I don't know that that's happened. If you just design another social media platform, I don't know that that is really cheating.
Yeah. So Canal over in Singapore has dropped 20 Singaporean dollars into the chat there. Thank you very much. How widespread is EU hostility amongst educated UK lefties? Disregarding trade issues, is there a belief that that of a large mandate Labour government outside the EU could affect more progressive laws in the near term than just basic EU rules?
I don't know that there's that much discussion at the moment. See, the thing is, like, if you're in the UK, this is people's general attitude to Brexit. It hurts. It's like you're on fire, and people aren't sitting down on fire having a deep discussion thinking, so which direction should we go in? There's people going, this hurts. It didn't hurt when we were in the single market and customs union. Can we please go back as quickly as possible? That is the general discussion amongst most people on the left. Yeah. But there we go. So I might switch if Phil is going to join Threads. I might at some point, but the thing, I'll tell you what I find. See, what I find useful in Twitter, I don't do it to build up a following, although I probably should. I use Twitter because I get direct access to the people who know things. experts in the law, in business, in international trade, in politics, in science, in everything that I could possibly have an interest in, professional or otherwise. I can find experts on Twitter because Twitter is an incredibly useful platform to disseminate information in bite-sized bits really quickly and easily. So, and it's incredibly important to me in the work I do. The other thing that's good about Twitter, which will surprise people, is the fact that I get to see the most insane right-wing swivel-eyed loons, as well as left-wing swivel-eyed loons. Let's not say it's a monopoly. And what they've got to say, because I quite like to know what people think about a thing in order to make sense of it. But I mostly talk about right-wing lunacy. So I need to know what they think. Otherwise, I'm just flying blind, much like Tory party strategy at the moment. So Twitter's actually really useful to me. So if you suggest to me there's this other platform which has no experts on it, and it's all supposed to be all lovely and calm, and it's like, right, so what do I do with that? So that's the issue for me. I would probably do it out of boredom. I tried Mastodon, that's pants. I might, out of boredom, just create it, but it won't be valuable to me. Twitter actually is valuable, even in its current form. Like lots of people saying, oh, Twitter's gone to hell since Musk took over. And I don't doubt it. But from my point of view, it's actually just as valuable as it ever was.
Yeah, Twitter is a simple platform, says Derek. Anyone can copy it and many have. Musk doesn't have a hope, but that won't stop him wasting billions more on fighting Twitter's legal battles.
Oh, he ain't got billions more. His own platform will be worth like £2.50 next week.
I'm still laughing at that. I honestly thought that it was something from The Onion news story I read this week about them stopping Model S's and the Teslas from having right-hand drive models being made, and you've got a choice whether to swap for a different model that still do right-hand drive, or you can get a left-hand drive model in the UK, and it comes with a grab stick.
Yeah,
for you to put your credit card into the when you're at a toll booth or something, you push it in with it. Oh my god, it's just bonkers. I'm sorry, I just can't stop laughing at it. It was just like the weirdest thing that I had to check on several different news sites to make sure that it was actually real, because it just looked too much like a wind up, like an April Fool or something.
yeah.
It's all right, we've got a grab stick, but yeah. Elon Musk is not a clever man.
No, he's not. He's an idiot.
He's just
Man's
rich.
an
idiot. I've just installed and joined and uninstalled Threads on my Galaxy A14, so I don't know what the poster said about it can't be uninstalled. Well, I know that on my Galaxy phone, I can't uninstall Facebook. It's on it, and like even if I log out and everything, it's still.
I get that, yeah.
Which is annoying, because obviously he's done a deal with Samsung at some point. Stephen Cameron says, I'm now 60. Hopefully I won't see another Tory government in my lifetime, because they've pissed off so many people in the last few years. Won't be easily forgotten. And Paul says Threads is growing quickly though, Phil. Galsworthy, Supertansky, Bylines, Graham are all piling in. Get an account, if only to protect or secure your unique username.
I don't know what it is.
Do you have Instagram? Do you use Instagram at all?
I have got an Instagram account. I don't use it.
Well, it just links to that. So basically, whatever you've got as your username for that goes across.
That wouldn't necessarily be suitable. No, it's nothing rude. But I used to use it for like gaming things. It has the name of my character on it, so that's no use.
Oh, no. Maybe make a new one then. I never really used Instagram very much. I used to do it when I was like traveling. I'll just put pictures on Instagram with a repeat, so it forwarded it onto my Facebook account. I used to go to my Twitter account as well, but they stopped that for some reason. Like you couldn't do that anymore. In the year 2025, if Twitter is still alive, James says educated lefties is an erroneous term. Aaron Bastani has a PhD, but his bias is such that critical thinking is a completely alien concept to him.
Well, we don't know that. We don't know. We don't know that. We don't know to what extent certain people lack critical thinking skills, and to what extent they may just be grifting a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. it's kind of painful that you have these people with really great platforms like Double Down News and Novara Media that put out some really good videos, but at the same time, they want to spend the vast majority of their output slagging off the Labour Party.
Yeah,
And I'm
but
like,
that's their audience, though. That's their target audience. The people who want to be pissed off at everyone. The people who want to believe in
why are they more pissed off at Labour in opposition than they are with the Tories who have done all this horrible stuff?
Because they think all they have to do is just wait for the Tories to implode. Like what they will say when Labour win the next election, they'll say, well, anyone would have won it then. Anyone would have won it. If we'd have kept Corbyn, he would have won it. The Tories were just ready to implode. That's what they'll say. And they just think all you have to do, and you go in, and then they also think you've got 100% of the power. You can do whatever you like you're a king. It's like, no, you can't. You still got to get consensus. You still got to make things work in reality. Do you think the Tories? Do you think what's happening in the country now is what the Tories imagined? Do you think Dominic Raab, what happened in his departments, is what he imagined? You can't just imagine anything and it makes it happen. You've actually got to have a plan. They've got no plans.
No, they haven't.
They don't get that. They think it's a betrayal. So, and the other reason why they hate the idea of a Labour government more than a Tory government is because every time Labour lose an election, there's a decent chance that you will force the leader to step down. So then they get another crack at having their sort of spirit animal taking charge of the party again.
Spirit animal.
So that's why. Whereas if Labour win the next election, like bollocks, we're stuck with Starmer for years now.
Yeah, exactly. Damien says, I have a dream. In 15 or 16 years, my granddaughter says to me, we learned about something called the Tories. Who are they? Why do they no longer exist? Right. Damien, I share your dream. And Citizen Jim saying, I've never used Twitter. Might give Threads a go, but heard it's not available in the EU yet. Probably data protection. I think it is. It's something to do with GDPR. It
almost certainly will be.
And also, there's an argument that Zuckerberg might be trying to punish the EU for coming down hard on Facebook with massive fines for data breaches.
Is it a punishment to the EU? Really?
No.
Like, I want to create this platform and I want it to take off so it's massive. Oh, but I will, to cut my nose off to spite my face, prevent an entire continent from using it.
Yeah. Leaf Huntress is suggesting maybe it's time for a general Civic video about how UK politics works. The general public seems to lack basic knowledge about that. Would that be something that you'd be up for?
Sorry, what was that? Sorry.
Maybe it's Leaf Huntress is suggesting that it's time for a general Civic video about how UK politics works. The general public seem to lack basic knowledge about that.
Well, there should be a lot of things taught in schools for a start. Civics lessons should be part of it. I mean, Labour have announced education policy this week that brings oracy to the fore, which I don't know how much people really appreciate, but it would be absolutely massive. I mean, when I taught in a college, it was always a big focus. In a college, you're deemed to have enough time to focus on what are called soft skills. And also in a college, sixth form college in particular, like in a school, they haven't got the time to, but also it's like, well, what do you need it for? From their progression point of view, kids get GCSEs, then go to college. Whereas in a college's point of view, you've got to go to university for which there's an interview. So and colleges do get judged on progression. So, where your kids end up going, where your students end up going. So it's in the college's interest to develop the sort of skills that are useful for interviews so they can get the jobs, apprenticeships and university places. But to actually introduce it properly in schools would be really good. I wish they would also introduce things like critical thinking, basic economics and politics, at least how the political system works. You don't have to make it like political, just how the political system works functionally.
Yeah, but what about us doing something like once a week? We do a quick vid where it's just me and you discussing a different.
You can do. I have tried that in the past on my channel, and it doesn't get many views. How this works, how that works.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, right? If this channel takes off and I make enough money out of it to pay the rent, which I'm not at the moment, I will definitely make that a thing where once a week, either I'll do it myself or I'll do it with you, Phil, where we'll talk about a different aspect of British politics and how it works.
If
Because we use these terms like gerrymandering and constituencies and PR and first past the post and single transferable vote, and we know what it means. And we assume that a lot of people watching this, because we're obviously all politics wonks here, know what it means. But the vast majority of the British public don't give a shit. I mean, to them, it's like the offside rule. It's something that you don't need to know unless you need to know it.
What I would say is, if anyone is particularly interested, Institute for Government do really good explainers on a lot of how politics works, like the political system works.
Is it fun or is it quite dry?
It doesn't have like clowns jumping out at you or anything,
No,
but it does explain things. No, it's but it does explain things very well.
Yeah, thank you. Right, okay. Scootnum is there with £2 super chat there, just to put a smile on everyone's face. Thank you, Scootnum. And it's past 2 o'clock, mate. Time flies. Tempus fugit, as Jacob Rees-Mogg would say in slow motion.
No, he'd get it wrong, wouldn't he? He'd say something else.
Nanny. Anyway, so yes, we've covered a lot of stuff here. We might have talked about Robert Jenrick a little bit more, but that story is just the worst. It's the absolute worst. I think we should maybe have like a little thing at the end of the week of doesn't Max does this, doesn't he? Like idiot of the week or whatever.
Yeah.
We should do something like that where we have like a little league table of just like who was it Farage? Was it Boris Johnson? Was it Robert Jenrick? Was it Jonny Mercer or Jonny Mercer's wife? Who's the biggest arsehole of the week? We'll like put it up here. We could do it as a poll. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, I know Jonny Mercer was he was boasting about his Question Time performance last night, and now I've noticed later on today he's whining that people are complaining about it. Apparently, mansplaining isn't the sort of positive look he thought it was.
Mansplaining. Yeah, men, eh? Who'll have them? Anyway, thank you very much for all of the wonderful chat here and on the super chats, and thanks to all the YouTube members out there and the patrons that allow this channel to grow over the last few months. And thanks so much to Phil here for giving up his time to talk with me and you about what's been going on this week. Hopefully I'll be back tonight at 9 o'clock for the Labour Social, but it's not guaranteed yet. So please subscribe, hit the bell notification icon. You should get a little buzz in your phone if and when we go live. But otherwise, I'll see you on Monday at 9:30. And until then, I'll say thanks for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.